Everyone, it's Dr. Scott. This video is going to be released Tuesday of week 13 in research methods in composition and rhetoric. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about week 13 stuff, and then I'm going to talk more about week 14 and kind of wrapping up the end of the term. So in week 13, again, it's Tuesday. Later today, there's a class meeting. It's optional, and you got one of two options. You can participate in today's conversation about the reading, and there's some questions in the week 13 folder for you to consider. We'll have a conversation about those things. I'll take any questions that you have about the final project. I'll share a few other things that are going on, and then you don't have to complete the discussion board posting. If you can't join us tonight, that's totally fine. I'll try to remember to record it and post it in the week 13 folder. But if you can't join us tonight, complete the discussion board posting. You're answering kind of the same questions. And if there's any final questions you have about the final project, that would be a good opportunity to ask me. You're also more than welcome to email me, send me portions and questions about your project as we wrap up the end of the term. So that's the class activity for Tuesday, Thursday, Friday of week 13. Your drafts are due for the peer review. And I change this up a little bit each semester, so you want to take a look at the week 13 folder for what I'm asking for the peer review. There's going to be one component where you kind of get to choose what you're going to contribute to the peer review. It might be your literature review, it might be something else, but choose something that you can use some feedback on that maybe you don't feel quite as confident about. That peer review that document should all be one document. So combine all those things together. If you got everything in PDFs, let me know. I might be able to help you out. And then that stuff is due Friday, and it kind of needs to come in on Friday. I need to hold folks to that because the next day I need to come in and get everything lined up for the peer review. So due date for the peer review drafts that are going to be reviewed, that's Friday of week 13. The peer review itself, that's week 14. So now we're talking about week 14. That's it. We're just doing peer review. We're kind of looking at the end of the term, so there's no reading. It's just kind of the peer review and any final questions you have about the final project. Week 14 is a good opportunity to get those answered. So peer review, it's due that Thursday of week 14. And again, I need to hold folks to that. I'm pretty relaxed when it comes to due dates with homework and stuff like that. But in terms of like people needing feedback in order to revise, that weekend, I think folks have set aside as like that's when they're going to get a lot of that final project done. So these peer reviews really do need to come in Thursday of week 14. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to switch screens, and I want to talk a little bit about end of semester stuff, and I want to talk about peer reviews and things like that. So let me switch screens, and we'll chat in a sec. Hey everyone, so this is the final project prompt in research methods in composition and rhetoric. It's due Friday of finals week. This prompt is going to change a little bit from term to term based on the feedback that I receive from students. This is the version that we're using in the spring 2024 cohort. But it more or less, again, stays the same. So this assignment is due Friday of finals week, and that's a pretty firm deadline. Tuesday after finals week at noon, that is when grades are due. So Saturday is usually commencement. I can get a little bit done then, but it's really that Sunday and Monday that I have to read everybody's project, and I read everything. I read it, some things more closely than others, but I read everything, and I think about it, and I write up some feedback, and I want a day to kind of sit on that feedback, go back, revisit it, and I think about whether or not I'm being fair, whether or not I'm staying true to the criteria that I gave you, and once I'm satisfied that I've done a fair job, then I'll enter grades. The way this process works, you turn in your final project on that Friday of finals week. That Saturday morning, I will turn off the Blackboard site so you won't have access to it. I'll download everything, and then when the Blackboard site is available again after Saturday morning, that means that I've entered grades, and you can take a look in the grade book to see what grades you earned. So it's again, the point I was trying to make is that Friday of finals week, firm deadline, because I need that time in order to get things read and to provide you that feedback. So know that. If an emergency comes up, emergencies always come up, and I'm willing to be as flexible as I can. Reach out and let me know. But just like timing wise, you just want a little bit more time over the weekend. You really need to get it in Friday. Get it in that Friday. So these are the things I'm looking for. I don't think any of these should be a surprise at this point. We've talked about, we've worked on, shared pieces of each of these items, some more than others, but everything is something that we've talked about throughout the term. I will ask that you try to get as much of this into one document as you can. If you can get 1 through 9 into one document, that'd be great. If you need to submit the IRB application and your survey instrument and your timeline as separate documents, that's fine, I guess. But as fewer documents as possible would be helpful. It would be easier for me. It doesn't mean that I can't work with folks that need to submit multiple documents. If that's what you need to do, we'll make it work. So how am I grading this stuff? There are a few things that I really try to hold myself to as a faculty member. One is that I don't start grading you on things that I don't tell you about. So you're not going to see me getting in there and any grammatical things. Like I'm not going to focus on that stuff. I'm focused on these 3 criteria on the screen right now. Application of Blakeslee and Fleischer, and to that I would add course content. So you're applying what you've learned from the class. A lot of that came from the textbook, but some of it came from conversations with me, class meetings that we've had, interactions on the discussion board, the videos, things that I've tried to teach you throughout the term. Hopefully there's some things that throughout the class you can pull from a variety of sources to say, these are why I made some of the decisions that I made. With each of these criteria, I give you a sense of where I'm going to be looking for these things. So your method section is probably the most important place to include some connections to the textbook and also to things that you've learned this term. But there's also other places like 5, 7, 8, and 9. So that is the goals and objective statement, the draft timeline or Gantt chart, and how that might be relevant is those steps before you start conducting interviews that they talk about in the textbook. They talk about getting permissions from folks and getting assent forms together, the IRB process. All those things are stuff that we've talked about, I've got videos on, but it's also mentioned in the textbook. So, if I take a look at your timeline and you've just got I'm going to begin and I'm going to end, I'm like, did you really? Can you really do that? I think the textbook and I think the things that we've talked about in the class would say that you've got many more steps to include. Completed IRB application, so I should kind of see some impact of course content there and in whatever draft protocol that you put together. So application of course content, textbook, but also other things that you've engaged with in the class. Engagement with your research. The research that you've done for your literature review and it's the problem statement. The problem statement and the literature review, it's clear that you've learned something about that topic and you were able to apply it to your project. And you began here and you ended here. That trajectory should be visible in your materials, but particularly items 2 and 3, problem statement and literature review. Explanation and support. Again, I've said this before, your method section and things that you write about at this point in the process, particularly if you're not going to engage this kind of research, next semester or for a thesis project, it's all a work of fiction. But I do need to kind of see that you've thought through the choices that you made and thought through some of the logistics of a research project, given what we've learned so far. So being able to fully explain your responses, giving me really short responses or not much detail or conversation about some of the things that you've got in your materials, that'll be an issue. So if you got really terse responses and this is not a place, particularly like your method section and other parts of the final project, for just really kind of short and sweet. It's not the place for it. I'm looking for thoughtful conversation and engagement, an explanation of your project. So that's here's the boring rubric that I have for that. And if you have any questions about this, I get that it's 50% of the course grade, and I think that freaks some folks out. It's not meant that way. It's just this is where you're putting a lot of your effort and a lot of your labor. This is where you should get rewarded for that labor and for that hard work. If you're not sure where you are grade-wise, or if you're concerned where you are with grades, come chat with me. I'm happy to kind of set you straight and like, here's where I think you are, and here's what I think you need to do, and be happy to chat with you about that stuff. So that's the final project. So I'm going to give you feedback on your final project after you submit it. Those 3 criteria, I'm going to give you. I'm going to write a little bit about how you did on each of those criterion. I will quote back things that you wrote in your final project. So you're not going to get like generic, you did okay, or something like that. But you'll get some thoughtful, detailed responses from me. Again, given time constraints, I won't be able to give you a ton of feedback, but you're going to know I'll be able to explain, here's how I thought you did, and here's why, and here's parts of your final project that I thought you did well on, or you could have improved upon. In week 14, we're going to do that peer review. So here's some thoughts about peer review that I wanted to share with you all. One, there's a few things that we do, like taking the class, doing these assignments. A lot of it is about you and you improving as an educator or learning about this field and kind of getting acquainted with the field. A lot of it is about you and what you get out of it. Peer review is one of the few places where you're asked to help other folks out. So I take it kind of seriously. I don't know, I guess it's that do-gooder in me that I want to do right by people, and I want folks to, I want to be helpful to folks. So the peer review is important to me, and I hope that everybody takes it seriously. If you want to get a sense of my values when it comes to peer review and what I'm expecting with peer review, Richard Straub's responding to student writing. I think I might have got that wrong. That's an article that's really important. And in the supplemental resources for this week, I got information about how to find that article. It's really accessible. It's written for students, and if you teach in high school, it's excellent. It's excellent, and I use it when I teach first year writing to train students how to give effective peer reviews. So check that out. Check it out for your own teaching. But if you're also curious, like, how is Dr. Scott going to grade a peer review? That Straub is what I look at. And I'll talk a little bit about what he discusses and that aligns with what I'm expecting. The other thing that I would also point your attention to is Ian Barnard's article on whole class workshops, and I also give you information about how to find that article in the week 14's supplemental resource folder. But also, if you just email me, I'll send you a PDF. Copyright laws and all that. That's why it's not in the Blackboard shell. So things to think about when conducting peer reviews, and again, a lot of this borrows on Straub. One is give feedback that's in the context of the assignment. Giving feedback just about like what you like and what you think is effective writing. I guess that can be kind of helpful here and there, but honestly, you've got an assignment that's worth 50% of your course grade. We should be giving folks feedback that helps us do well on those criteria. So, you might have some pet peeves about writing and, passive voice. Why do we have so much of that? Maybe note that. I'm not going to care too much about that stuff. But if you notice that a student is not really kind of citing much of the course content, you might recommend some places where they could go. Like, hey, I remember this chapter in the textbook where they talked about this issue that you mentioned in your methods section. You might want to back that up. Or Dr. Scott's got this video that talks about this issue that you might want to rethink or think about and include. So provide feedback that's in the context of the assignment. You know what I'm looking for. Make sure that your feedback helps them do well on those criteria. Make sure that your feedback is honest. I statements are great in peer review. I was a little confused when you wrote this. That's great. That's good stuff. It's honest because it's from your perspective. I think, I was thinking this when you wrote this, or I got turned around, or I was really inspired when you wrote this. And positive feedback, you want to include that as well. But, we're here for the constructive feedback. So, the I statements are great. You statements, not great. Because it gets kind of like, you need to do this. It's real. that's not your role as a reader. Your role as a reader is to give your honest feedback as a reader, and that's why the I is much more effective than the U. Be generous. Don't be stingy with your feedback. That doesn't mean that you need to comment on every paragraph gets a comment or anything like that, but you should give substantive feedback about the student's writing. And if you're not sure if you've had bad luck with peer reviews and you're not sure what to say, I'm happy to help folks out. Because, again, the point of this is to make sure folks get good feedback. So let me know if you've got questions about this, but be generous with your feedback and write it out in full sentences. I shouldn't see, awkward in the margins. What does that mean? I know I'm awkward. I don't need you putting that in a document. Explain, hey, I read this and it took me a few times to kind of figure out what you were saying. Can you rephrase this, or what were you really trying to say here? I'm confused by this. That's an honest I statement that's written out in a full sentence, and it makes sense. And explain your feedback. So if you do get turned around by something, kind of explain what that confusion was. If you just say citation ? That's not terribly helpful. But if you say hey, I think I remembered this thing from week whatever, you might consider this because you've gone a while without talking about without substantiating anything that you've said with course content. Explain that feedback. Don't just give directives. Explain your feedback. I think that's, think about the feedback that you'd like to receive as a writer. If you just get something in the margins that says citation ? I guess that could be helpful, but you'd have to do a lot of work to kind of figure it out. And it doesn't sound like somebody's too committed if they're just giving you a one-word response. But if somebody's taking the time to give you a few sentences, some ideas to think about, that's helpful feedback. So think about the feedback that you want to receive and make sure that you're providing that feedback that's going to help them do well on those criteria. That's the peer review. So that feedback is due Thursday of week 14. I'm going to grade that the following day. So you'll have that feedback between then and then when the final project is due, which is Friday of finals week. And that is the term. That's the end of the semester. I want you all to hang in there. I know that you all have been patient. You've done a lot of hard work. I'm proud of y'all. But hang in there. We're almost there.